Hi, and welcome back to Urbcast, the podcast in which we talk about cities, about architecture, about urban development, but also about people and with people who make them better. And today we'll dive into a very important topic which is often misunderstood, and this is namely sustainability in urban context. We'll talk about how urban sustainability plays a role in policies, in design strategies, but also in project briefs. The biggest question was, what does urban sustainability actually mean today? Is it about green roofs and energy efficiency, or something much deeper, like how we live, how we consume, how we shape our cities within the planetary boundaries? And to help me unpack that, I'm joined by Andreas today, who's the sustainability expert, researcher, and founder of Urban Upstream. Andreas has spent over 10 years working in the field, from developing Copenhagen's climate strategy as a part of the Copenhagen municipality, and also as an urban sustainability expert at the Danish engineering company called Rumble. He's now working independently and helping cities and organizations bridge the gap between science and real-world transformation. So today, exploring the idea of sustainability, how this notion of sustainability is evolving, why some people argue that we should stop building altogether, and what it really takes to make our cities regenerative, not just less harmful. And the million-dollar question at the end, the one that I put into the title of this episode: can cities be truly sustainable? Welcome to the newest episode of Urbcast. Welcome to Urbcast.
Thank you.
I'm very curious about your story. We've met a couple of years ago already, but it's only now that we have a chance to talk in Urbcast and talk about your new journey in urban sustainability. But maybe before we start with that, could you tell us, the listeners, something more about yourself, your background, and your profile?
All right. So thank you for inviting me. First of all, it's I've been listening to some episodes, so it's nice to also join this journeys of yours. So thank you. And my name is Andreas Qvist Secher, and I've been working in the sustainability area for 10 plus years. My journey actually in this field started in my education, working with life cycle assessment at the Technical University of Denmark. And I actually then started my career in the city of Copenhagen, working with climate planning. A lot of things about CO2 projections and how to become sort of a CO2 neutral city, as it is, and was ambitious. And I was very keen on the technical side, but also how to implement this knowledge and these issues of sustainability. And I got a lot of insights in that. Through that, I loved working in the city of Copenhagen. It was very insightful, and I got to work with scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions and stuff like that. So very keen on CO2 itself. And then I joined a bigger company, advising company, and I've been there for a little more than 9 years. Introducing life cycle assessment and working with both urban sustainability, but also in the value chain of building design and sustainability in the building design and the materials for that. So used a lot of time and energy on that. And then just recently, I decided to take my career another step or a new way. And founded my own little company called Urban Upstream. Also, from the insights I got through the work I've done in the city of Copenhagen and in Rumble, the bigger consultancy company, and dedicated on urban scale. So working both with city scale to begin with, and then building design. Now I wanted to work in the even more in the intersection between those two, because there's a lot of potential in my point of view in this scale. I think there's a lot of knowledge to be developed. There's a lot of applied science to be seen at, and there's a lot of things that happens between political decisions and all the knowledge that are being brought up from all the good people that are working in urban sustainability sphere.
How do you find it so far? Because one could think that being part of such a big consultancy firm, meaning Rumble here, which is having dozens of thousands of people around the world, now you are leading your own small consultancy. How do you see it in terms of impact that you can make?
That's a good question. I ask myself throughout my career as well, how to influence and make impact, and on what level and where to. So I think it's been a great time also trying to impact from small projects to larger projects, but also the recent years in Ramble, I work mainly with kind of research, analysis, and applied science. So a little bit away from projection and design, and more into how can we actually turn these insights into new actions. That's been great for me and very insightful again, being, for example, an industrial PhD supervisor for a couple of PhDs, and also trying to navigate through what's happening in public sphere and what's happening in the private sphere, and figuring out what are the needs, turning those needs, but also these science-based insight into some kind of action or inaction, if you might. How do we do things differently? And that's some of the things I'm very explorative about now in my new journey at Urban Upstream.
You've mentioned urban sustainability, and this is something I wanted to talk about really, because there is a lot of discussion. There was a lot of discussion already back in the days here in Denmark about sustainability itself, but I really would like to talk about designing and creating sustainable urban districts. And this is obviously, I assume, way harder because you work with so many different elements. But how would you define this urban sustainability?
Again, love the question. I've been so privileged to actually take a master in strategic urban development at the architectural school in Copenhagen, and through that, I learned the theory of discourses. And in the theory of discourses, sustainability is what is called empty signifier, meaning it actually is a word that you can fill in with the meaning you want, more or less. I think everybody agrees sustainability is somewhat a good thing, but it actually depends on the definition you put in it. And I think there's a lot of discourse changes in sustainability. Once was about energy efficiency or something simple as biking or something else. It has now changed to a more complex thinking of regenerativeness and what we actually need to do in the wider context of developing an urban space. So all you might know it from donut economy or planetary boundaries. What you do locally has a global influence, right? And all the upstream or embodied impact is actually some of the biggest impact we have as environmental sense when we plan urban districts, or when we actually import all the materials and all the things and shape the urban design for people to consume or to consume less. I think that's some of the things I find very interesting right now. That we both have designers and engineers and all kind of other disciplines needs to work together to figure out how do we actually form cities, or maybe not form but transform cities to become better applied for better consumption or improve quality of life as well at the same time. That's a big topic of mine and something I try to push.
And then Urban Upstream, the work you do now, I found you use this framework of updating, upgrading, and upholding. How does that work in the urban dimension?
In my view, this has been one thought I've had, that the discourse change and the knowledge we have about sustainability or whatever, it's from climate science to what's quality of life and how you design, that actually changes a lot over time, and we get more knowledge, but also our context change. So we need to update ourselves continuously. That's why I think applied science and research is really important in this sense. So I think we need to update our way of working continuously. That means in projects with all the different stakeholders that are involved in urban planning, and that is a lot of stakeholders, and a lot of stakeholders that has needs coming from other stakeholders as well. So there's a lot of trickle-down effects, both stakeholders, meaning investors that has some conditions they need to work within, but there's also the science of environmental impact and stuff like that. And how do you actually make that work together? That's a really complex and hard thing to do. But there are some dimensions now we are working with in the industry in general. So what I see is important from updating, then upgrading. And upgrading means that we actually need to upgrade what we have, but upgrade doesn't mean we need to apply more things. We need to upgrade in the things we do, both as planners, but also how we tackle the intersection between planning and urban life and consumptions such as. And we need to keep on doing that, so upholding that.
There is this big notion of urban metabolism, which ties also to overconsumption. This is another thing that I would like to talk about. What does this urban metabolism really mean? And why is it important for understanding the sustainability on city level?
Yeah, first of all, I think the world population is growing. We see urbanization, so more people in urban spaces. This doesn't only mean in Denmark or in the northern sphere. It's actually mean all over the world. It's big things are happening. I think it's around the square meters built every week compared to square meters in Paris every week. So there's a lot of things going on building this, and it comes from metabolism comes from what we also know in organic living, the metabolism of human beings, consumption, and so forth. The same will apply for cities. It's actually a big organism, and we are building big organisms every single week, every single day, every single second. But still, we need to look at the bigger metabolism of that. What is it we are putting into these cities, and how do we do it differently? Because I think many knows that business as usual and what we do now will not live up to any Paris agreements or any future. I think many of us would like to look into. So I think urban metabolism is so important to know as a subject. A little bit comes to, you also see in research urban metabolism and life cycle thinking being brought together. So it's a whole dynamic of how urban space is functioning. And of course, you look at all the technical aspects of that. But the technical aspects are being put in to actually have the frame condition for kind of good life. But the good life needs to be thought about again. What is good life actually? And in that context, I think urban metabolism is just a really important thing to know as an urban planner. And I think the other point I want to put in this is that even though we are building some in countries like Denmark, we need to also, as urban planners, think about how do we apply this to a global context. All the buildings that are being built every week, as mentioned, they are not being built primarily in the global north. It happens in the global south, and I think we have a obligation as well, also to both look at what can we do in the global south and help each other throughout north from south, east to west in this matter, because there's a big issue in how much that is projected of buildings that needs to be built. But there is just as big challenge, even bigger, of the environmental burden this puts into it.
Speaking of the overconsumption and the global north, I had Professor Architect Søren Nielsen and Nicholas Bo Andersen, who were talking about this. They are pushing the agenda very far because they call for stop building. You probably have heard about the stop building movement here in Denmark, which is this very ambitious initiative of basically rethinking how we build. And the message is that the global north has built enough over the last couple of decades or hundreds of years. And now this is time for us to rather focus on retrofitting than building new. So how does that come in play if we talk about working with urban sustainability and also those upstream environmental impacts? Because in a way, also, although the European cities are quite dense, probably we still need some new functions. So how can we address that? Like, do you agree with the notion that we rather should stop building at all?
I would like to give a shout out to one of the PhDs. I was a co-supervisor or supervisor from industrial supervisor, Lise Hvid, who's made an article about how much new build that has that is the limit within the planetary boundaries. So Lise made this research on it that we can at maximum we can allow a 20% still of the new build being built, so 80% needs to not be built to come within the environmental planetary boundaries. And that was really insightful for me as well, this research on it. There's a lot of ethical, political questions in it, how you allocate budgets to buildings and for that purpose. So there's a clear need that we need to build less, or I would like to say that we need to use less or change materials and use less materials. And what does that apply and come to? Of course, that means we need to retrofit more, build less. But most of all, we need to change our mindsets in how we plan for the future. It doesn't necessarily only mean retrofitting. Retrofitting also comes with a cost, environmental cost as well, first of all. And second of all, there's also making our building stock more efficient and thinking about living a little bit differently. And I think planning has a clear purpose here that municipalities, together with citizens and with the whole industry of urban planning and the build industry, has a big role to play in not only retrofitting, but also thinking differently of how we live in the cities that consume so much of our resources and emit all the CO2 it does. The challenge is that we, of course, think very locally when we want to live up to the needs that are locally, and there's a lot of needs, and there's a lot of that's also the kind of theoretically the beautiful thing about sustainability, that there's a lot of dimension in it, but there's a lot of frictions when you dive into it. Thus, also the notion of sustainability is empty signifier. That means that we have local needs about new functions, as you mentioned. We need to think about how we shape the design and the architecture of urban places that actually impact the quality of life. That is a need, and functions is a need. But we also have a responsibility, and we have a legacy as well to play when we think about not only right now locally what's needed, and there's different kind of needs. Some are needs to, and some are nice needs to. But there's also what takes off a lot of my thoughts is the responsibility we also have in a global context and in a future context. And I think there's a dimension of legacy. What is it that we are actually putting in front when we look into future generations? I think we are overlooking the legacy part of that. We might have done a couple of 100 years ago, where we thought a lot about legacy and what we actually leave to the future generation. Once it was education, one it was more insights into and philosophy and stuff like that. Now it's also, we cannot leave this planet as it looks like we're going to leave it. And we have a responsibility there. So my thoughts is a lot about, yes, we have local needs, but in global context, in a future context, there are things we need to do differently. And we need to take responsibility and think about our legacy in this. And not only the next 2-4 years that makes sense here. So that's what takes up a lot of my time in this field.
I think that many people, especially listening to this podcast, will agree that we need to rethink the way we build, we design, we produce buildings. And given your experience and your work with the Danish Green Building Council, I would like to ask about certification, if that can play a role, because sometimes I think it's just, it might be just as a sticker. You just put a sticker on a building. It's great. You get your certificate. You are amazing, and you can raise the rent. But how does it work in the urban sphere? I know there is something that is called the DGNB urban districts. So first of all, I would love to ask you to explain that. What does it mean? And second of all, if and how can certifications help us achieving those goals that you've talked about?
I was introduced to the certification scheme plus 10 years ago. And it gave me a language to talk about different sustainability dimensions. As said again and again, sustainability is many things, and you put it in and the discourse changes. Certification schemes can help in the process of actually noticing where in a local context of urban districts it can help localize potentials and dilemmas. And if you use it right, it also means that you need to use it right. Certification scheme is a certification scheme, so putting out some topics and some ways to go about it, right? But it's how you handle it and how you talk with the different stakeholders in urban districts that is important. Then there are topics that we all care about, the environmental impact, and that is a part of it, because DGNB, as other certification schemes, work with the classic 3 dimensions of sustainability: economically, social, and environmental sustainability. So far, I think it's been a journey on the DGNB part, both building certification, but also urban district certification, that we have seen something tested out for a decade now. And things are changing in also certification-wise. What can certify it? How to certify? For which stakeholders and the purpose of it all. And I've been very glad to see, also as a previous chair person of the Urban District Committee in the Green Building Council, happy to see that actually in Germany, where DGNB comes from, there's a pilot testing right now to change the certification from focusing on kind of new development to focus on existing districts and transformation, but also optimizing existing districts that are not per se building, districts and urban cities are also transforming all the time. There's no such thing as a final product. But what is really interesting in the certification scheme, I think, is that we will see a change. How it will be developed in Denmark is very looking forward to see that. But we will see a change in the certification scheme, going from can be used to all kind of urban districts, but also now in Germany, they're focusing on existing districts and transformation. And I think certification or not, you can work with sustainability, of course, but I think it has a role to play. As I saw it 10 years ago, we would never work with life cycle assessment, have the CO2 in our legislation today if it wasn't for certification. So I think it can have, if we're using it right and if it is developed the right way, I think you can actually have these new insights, research insights that you can transform into parameters that you want to investigate. You want to actually make evidence-based groundwork to push agenda. And certification can streamline that process. Even though it can be a sticker on the wall, it can also be something else. And I think that something else has a potential and maybe a bigger potential that are being utilized right now. But I think the potential is really there to make an impact that is not just the certification itself, but how we are working with the new insights we get and transforming them into more common practice. For me, it has a role to play between something that we're doing today and the newest the newest state of the art. In between this field, certification can have a role to play to push it to more state of the art, and state of the art that needs to be tested several times. That's where certification plays in my perspective, at least in a bigger sense.
We might have the certification that is motivating and then nudging to not build the new build, but to transform.
I think we will see, because in Germany right now they're piloting 10 plus existing urban districts, focusing on this area of transforming, improving existing urban areas. So yes.
Coming back to your upstream work, but also consultancy work before, how do you make sure that you integrate the knowledge? You said that you've been working a lot with research and back at Rumble, and I wonder if you have situations that you talk to a client and then they say, oh, this is too expensive, or this is, that's not going to work. Do you have any tools, or how would you then say, okay, but this is knowledge and that really, really should be done. Like, this is the research that should be applied into practice?
10 months in now, I think my main focus has been to actually do more research in collaboration with other partners, and being as a single person, it's focusing on actually taking together knowledge that are already existing, but also figuring out how to apply that in a industry-wide sense in the projects, those projects I've done now. But the dilemma you put out, I can theoretically talk about, because I haven't had that chance to do that yet. But if I could see that, I think there's two dimensions in it. One is that something is too expensive to do. There are these context-wide things that needs to put into considerations. And everything we do in urban planning and in the built environment has right now a negative impact unless we do more within the regenerative framework. That is really, really, really tough. So I think we always need to look at what are the local benefits from the global impact we have. And there are some decisions and some frictions that sometimes need to be taken, and sometimes you need to put your energy in other places with I think bigger impact. So it's a very difficult question to ask, because I think it depends on the context. But also, it's been a long time for me to be diving into, building projects, for example. But in urban districts, there's always informing decision makers throughout many parameters that they need to put into consideration. And being aware of them is one of the most important as a sustainability manager or sustainability leader, to actually put out it has these impacts through these different parameters that matters. And in the end, as a consultant, you are not taking the decision, but you really want to highlight issues and frictions. And that's what I try to do. So as a consultancy, I do that, but I also have, my own ideology and political thinking. So I think some things need to be, in my case, I put something through the things I do at work, and I also push other places, or I want to push even more other places as well. In the end, we need a political shift, and we need systemic change. I guess that's buzzwords we hear a lot, but I truly believe that as well. So a lot of different kind of scales we need to work at.
I mean, supporting the voice that you believe in, and we We are having the local elections here in Denmark, including Copenhagen, very soon. So that's definitely one of the ways. But as you said, I think that this is also important to say that you are having the knowledge, but you are a consultant. And the job of a consultant is to consult and is to like suggest ideas and solutions. But that's the client that has the final go, the final say, as they are investing the money, right? So that's something that might be quite tricky. That maybe not the best solution is always being chosen. To end on a more positive note and also educational note as well, I would love to ask you for a book recommendation. If you could share something ideally close to the topic and something that could inspire people further.
So I've been, besides working with environmental science and especially climate science, the one thing that triggered me to dive into urban planning was the people of Jane Jacobs and in Denmark, Jan Gehl, who thinks about life quality and figured out or investigated, what actually makes us live in urban spaces and what makes us thrive. That's another topic that's in my mind. It's not that far from what I also do. So one book which could be quite interesting both for you, especially for your Danish listeners, but also internationally, is a book or publication, I would more say, about a survey done by Realdania on 122,000 people about life quality. So it's a big publication and a lot of insights to make what actually makes us happy. Is it being close to nature? Is it having good neighbors and stuff like that? Yeah, maybe. But in that book or publication, there's a lot of insights to that.
I think I might have seen it also in English. So I will add the link to the publication in Danish, English, or both, ideally. And Andreas, thanks for this discussion, and thanks for unpacking the urban sustainability as much as we could in this short format, of course. But I'm very glad that we did it, and I'm also excited for your journey for Urban Upstream. So I wish you all the best with that project, and I hope to reconnect with you in some time and see how it's going with the dialogue with the clients to make our urban districts a bit better and more sustainable.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me as well. It's been a pleasure.
And that's it for today. Thanks a lot for listening to this episode of Urbcast. You can follow Andreas, and also you can find the book recommendation in the episode description. If you have any questions, if you got inspired, feel free to reach out to both of us and share it with your friends. Thanks.